Hey, how are you guys doing? Welcome back to Raising Champions with another episode, but this time with Corrie Samaniego at Corrie Mental Sports Consulting. Correct?
That's correct,
All
Daniel.
right. Fantastic having you. It's always a pleasure when Coach Corrie is in town, when I get to work with you. Everything feels right.
Aw.
So it's always a pleasure having you. So thank you for meeting with us on such a tight schedule. With that being said, we met over 10 years ago.
Correct.
I know time flies. We met at the time it was called Carlsbad United, and you were coaching boys at the time, and I was coaching girls before you switched over. And it was such a cool experience meeting you, getting to work with you, and seeing you in the fields. And then eventually that led to when we moved on, that I started Girl Power Soccer, that you were able to come on and really add to it. I think we did about 4 to 5 camps together.
Yes.
Even had your daughter come. It was
Yes.
pretty cool. And what a memorable experience. And all the kids always remember, love working with you, with the team bonding experiences, and just dealing with the mental side of things. So tell me, how did you start your company? How did this all began? Where did you feel that, hey, this is a need, I need to be there?
Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me,
course.
and you know I love you.
Yes.
And I'm excited for you for this podcast. So
Appreciate.
kudos to you for
Good.
for getting this going. As far as how I got started in this athletic journey, I kind of look at myself like I've walked in many different shoes. I've been the player. I played at a Division II school, soccer, up at Chico State University.
Let's go.
And went from player to coach, where I've coached for over 25 years on the field. Something that I was really passionate about when I was coaching was just the mental part of the game, right? If you break up a sport, in any sport, into 4 pieces, you've got the physical, the technical, the tactical, and the mental part of the game.
Of course.
And something that I started to see as a coach was that we were really missing that mental part, that mindset piece. And so I became really passionate about how can I support athletes, not just on the X's and O's of the game, but really how can I help them with the confidence? Something that I kept hearing over and over from athletes and parents over my coaching career was, my player's not motivated, or coach, how do I get motivated? Or I'm making mistake after mistake after mistake. How do I brush that off? Or I just got cut from a team. I'm really down. How do I bring my confidence back up? So I eventually took myself off the field coaching to more of just as a mental performance coach. My background is in psychology. That's what I studied, sports psychology, and so it was just a natural fit.
What took you so long?
But I don't know.
I think you were on the field, really you were field studying,
Yeah.
figuring out, being there in the trenches, and then it popped, right?
Absolutely. Well,
Yes.
it just started all of a sudden. Obviously you mentioned I started working with boys, and then it was like, wow, here I am as a female.
Right.
How can I become a female mentor? And I'm recognizing things that happened to me as a female athlete mentally, and giving support to to these female athletes. So it was just it was a natural progression for me to come off the field after 25 years to really start coaching the brain, right? Training the brain versus training the repetitive, covers and all of that.
100%.
So, and then the last thing, the other shoes I've walked in is I'm a parent of 2 former athletes.
Right.
A daughter who's 25 now and a son who's almost 21 who played, at the elite level. So I really have a lot of experience when it comes to all different aspects of the game.
Wow, I agree 100%. And it's funny because I didn't know it at the time. Growing up and playing, you just played and you just figure it out. But the mental, I would say, is almost first. At first, I thought it's skill and hard work and fitness and all that, and then the mental. I think mental is first, making the decision to do this, making the decision to be the best you can be, and then dealing with whatever you have to deal with to get to be on top. And then when you're on top, you still have to deal with that. I honestly believe the mental is first, and when it is, you told me you went into this field full time, I'm like, dang, this is perfect.
Yeah.
And we do need that balance because we do see kids struggle. And I think even with just the soccer part, they struggle with themselves first.
Yeah.
And then when it says you're comfortable and confident in yourself, and it spills out into their schoolwork, their family life, and of course their sporting life. So we need more of you. 100%.
Well, I agree that this needs to be actually flipped around. I always say we need to flip the script, and people spend so much time on the physical, technical, and tactical part of the game, and that mental part is just like kind of like, oh yeah, it's there, right? But my goal is flip that script. The mental part is the biggest part of the game,
Right.
for a number of reasons that you talked about, right? I kind of look at it like building a house, right? When you build a house, what do you build first?
Foundation.
The foundation, right? And the stronger that foundation is, right, whatever you build on top of
Right,
it is going to be sturdy and it's going to weather the storm. Doesn't
yeah,
mean that it's
love
not going to
that.
wear down. It doesn't mean that but that foundation is that mental, for me, is that mental part of the game. Is that mental part of the game. So
How do you build that from a human standpoint? Is it like from being a kid that, hey, you are good, you're great? How does that, how do you build that as a person first?
self-awareness.
Okay.
That is the biggest piece you were mentioning about kind of like building the confidence. And so there's a number of ways, I should say,
Right.
to build that foundation. I find that self-awareness is key. Understanding who you are as a player,
Okay.
understanding who you are as a human being. If you have that self-awareness to understand, like, I'm a confident player or I'm an aggressive player, right? It's kind of like your GPS, right? And that's going to give you the confidence that you need to move forward. And I'll explain a little bit further on that in a moment. So that foundation is key. And then also tools and resources. Think about when we're coaching on the field.
Okay.
We're giving them tips and things that they can take away to practice, right?
Right.
So they're working on corvers, they're working on penalty kicks. There's techniques and tactics to it, right? The mental part of the game is no different. So it's about building what I call a mindset toolbox for them. So they get these tools like breathing, they get these tools like visualization, they get these tools like positive self-talk. And so you build those tools, and then you build that through self-awareness.
Okay, if I'm a person, I'm doing positive talk, but I'm still failing, I'm still making mistakes, what's the next step like?
The first one is recognizing failure is going to happen.
Okay.
I think a lot of us try to honestly avoid failure. Even parents try to avoid failure. They don't want their kids to fail, so they'll do everything they can to make sure we're going to privates, we're doing this, we're doing that, right? So failure is, the first part of failure is recognizing that it's okay.
Okay.
We're going to fail.
So, because I love that you said that, because what I'm seeing, because obviously I've been in the coaching world quite
Sure.
a bit and around parents constantly and kids, I'm starting to see this thing here, you know, this thing here, pointing the finger at everybody else.
Yep.
That I don't want to fail, but I'll blame someone else
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
versus then self-reflection. So I'm starting to see more of that, more prevalent. Oh, let me just move clubs,
Yeah.
let me just move this, or move teams, because
Yeah.
I'm just going to blame somebody versus accepting
Yeah.
failure first. Okay, but that leads us to the next questions. Let's go with the questions about how do I deal with being cut, whether it's high school, whether it's not making varsity and making JV, or not making JV, making freshman, or just not making the club team that I desire. How do I deal with, as a kid and even as a parent,
Yeah.
of not making that team you desire?
It goes back to what I just exactly said about failure. It's going to happen.
Okay.
It's going to happen, right? So, and I mean, I'm working with about 3 different athletes right now. So I work with athletes one-on-one, and I've got 3 athletes that didn't make the top team. They're now on the second team.
Okay.
And so they're now working with me to get their confidence back up. So this is a great question. It's recognizing that, again, that failure to not make the team that you wanted, it's going to happen to the best of us.
Okay.
Right? Alex Morgan didn't always make the teams that she wanted. I didn't always make the teams that I wanted, right? You potentially didn't make the teams that you wanted, right? And
100%.
so he's like, no.
If I did, I'll be in Paris somewhere or London in the penthouse right now. But you know, life's a process.
So to go back to your question is, how do you deal with that? I think it's understanding, one, again, it goes back to that self-awareness, understanding do I know the type of player that I am? Okay, do I know who I am like, do I truly understand? Do I know what it's true about myself? So if I know myself to be a hardworking, kick ass, aggressive player, okay, and I didn't make the team, I'm not going to allow, if I know that truly, it goes back to that foundation, self-awareness, if I know that about myself, okay, it's going to make those obstacles and those challenges a little bit easier. Okay? So when you do get cut by that team, you can get, okay, what do I know to be true about myself? And that's a great question athletes can ask themselves. It's like a nice scripted question you can ask. I know I just got cut, yes, but I do know that I'm hardworking. I do know that I'm aggressive, right? The second thing is going to the source. Why did I get cut? Communication, understanding with the coaches, okay? And then it's actually taking and looking through the lens of like, okay, I got cut. Instead of that blaming, like, I didn't make it because that coach didn't like me. I didn't make it because that girl's, sucking up to the coach more than I am, right? I'm not saying there's not politics in things, but what I'm saying is don't turn the finger here and turn it here, which is really hard to do. But it's that self-reflection. Okay, I didn't make it. What do I need to do? Why didn't I make it? Reflect yourself, communicate to the coaches, and then you get a plan together.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
100%. And let's flow that into the next question. So you do make the team. You just got in there, and maybe you're starting, maybe you're playing, and then all of a sudden you're on the bench. That's a big one. Unfortunately, a lot of these teams have huge rosters. It's only 11 on the field, but a roster is 22, 24. There's a club right now that there's, I think they're 12-year-olds, 2011s or something, 2012s, and there is 22. So that means 4 kids are not even going to dress. And they have 18, and then a coach may only play 14. So you have 3 or 4 on the bench not playing, and then you have 4 not even dressed. How do you deal with that at 11, 12 years old? This is kind of crazy, right? For youth soccer. That is so competitive. How do a kid deal with being benched? Does it have the same principles of being cut, or what's your thoughts? Because, I mean, they're closer to the field.
Yeah. That's hard. You can taste it a lot. You can taste it a lot. It tastes a lot more. And, I mean, I can go into a whole other episode on just the youth soccer pathways in the United States right now and everything.
That's next episode.
That's another. But in this particular question, like you've got to play. You're sitting the bench. It is perspective.
Okay.
It's an interesting story. I have an opportunity to work with Julie. Ooh, I've got an eyelash in my eye. Sorry. Don't get extensions, ladies.
You have beautiful eyelashes. Don't worry.
I have an opportunity to work with Julie Thoudy every summer at her leadership academy, and we were talking about something similar. And she said, it's really interesting is that the last players on the roster are actually picked first. Because those individuals, right, they're the backbone of the team. When they're on the bench and their perspective is that they want you to score a goal just as bad as you want to score a goal, that is a different perspective than sitting on the bench and being like
grumpy.
Like, I should have been on this field. Now, it doesn't mean they're not competitive. It doesn't mean that they don't want to be out there. My point is, it's perspective. It's how you look at it. You can sit on the bench and go, man, I'm never going to play. Then guess what? You're going to manifest that. What we tell our brain is going to come out.
And you start falling into a deeper hole of negativity.
Especially if you have like mom and dad over here saying, oh, why aren't you playing? Why aren't you playing? You've got all these voices. So it's, what glasses are you putting on? What lenses are you looking through? Okay, so I can sit here and be like, I'm not playing. Then you're probably not going to play. You could open up constant communication with coaches. What can I be doing? And I know that can get frustrated for some players. Like, I'm still asking, but I'm not playing. That's not the point. That's not the outcome here. The outcome is that you're getting mentally stronger. You're learning your communication skills. You are building for the future. Correct. You might not be you may be on the bench right now, but everything that you've done physically, mentally, technically, tactically, by your communication and by the perspective that you're looking at, is going to have you further ahead than that person that's sitting next to you that is sulking and
Well, talk a little bit about that negative talk to yourself, because I'm in the ECNL and I'm there, and all these games are hard. I mean,
Yeah.
these games, we play in the last place team, and it's a battle. We're like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
there's no easy game at this
Yeah.
level, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're winning 4-0, it's still
Yeah.
a battle. And talk about that negative talk to yourself, because I'm there and I'm watching kids on the bench, and you see the facial expression, or sulking, or whatever. Coach now is not feeling confident by watching you, and they're like, she's not ready, or he's not ready. I don't really feel that day. How can you? What kind of tools can you do at home? I know you kind of answered a little bit of it before, of trying to work on your self-talk. Suppose you're going to start the game, coach changes their mind, you're on the bench. What can you do? Is there like a game you can play, or tapping your foot to get yourself out of that funk in that immediate situation?
That's a great question, and there's a lot of tools, a lot of different tools that we talk about, that mindset toolbox that I talked about at the beginning, to help these athletes with that mental part of the game. Because again, going back, training the brain, you have to be consistent, just like you would be with corvers or with footwork or anything. It's repetitive. So yes, there are so many different tools. I like to do this funny thing, and the athletes that I work with think I'm crazy when I say this, but it's something that sticks with a lot of athletes when it comes to negative self-talk.
Right.
And I call it the negative self-talk in your head, and every single one of us have it. We have that nasty roommate that lives in our head. And mine's name is Linda.
Ah, Linda.
And giving that negative self-talk a name, like even as a coach, or even now as a mindset performance, but even coming here, I'm like, oh my gosh, what if they don't like what I'm saying? Oh my gosh, what if I fail? What if I don't? So first and foremost, we all worry about it, right? So I'm like, Linda, shut the up, right? You've got this. You have, what I know to be true about myself is that I've been doing this a long time. I have the gifts to help athletes,
Correct.
right? So I tell athletes, name that, and again, it helps with the body language too, because you mentioned, like, coaches are looking at you and you're sitting there and you're like, I'm not going in, and you've got a nasty look. It's like, when you tell that nasty roommate in your head, it kind of like, okay, I got this, be quiet, move out of here for a while.
So you're kind of schizo for a hot second, right? That's what it
But
is.
it's kind of like, when I tell athletes this, when I'm working with them for the first time, they kind of look at me, especially young, like teenagers.
Yeah.
They're like, and then they try it, and they're like, oh yeah.
Wow.
And I get some, I'm like, so what's your roommate's name? And they're, oh, you should hear some of the names.
Wow.
But when you separate that voice from yourself,
Okay.
again, that's self-awareness. When you
Yes.
separate, it really
Putting
makes
it in a box.
It makes a huge difference, because then I'm not talking to myself. That is not. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm
I see
not.
what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Linda is the negative person, not me. I'm a good player. I know that to be true.
Good.
Linda's just telling me, oh, you're benched because you are not a good player.
Okay.
Coach doesn't like you.
I love
oh,
that.
be quiet.
So, okay. No, so now that you've put Linda in a box, and now she's not in you, she's on the end of the bench, or hopefully on her way to the stands.
Yeah.
What can you do? Like, I'm going to say, so I'm on the bench. So for me, I had one time I had bad attitude. This is when I was a teenager, and coach put me on the bench.
A teenager, only when you have a bad
Yeah,
attitude?
girl, I'm good now. I'm good now. But yes, imagine that once upon a time I had bad attitude and I got benched. I wasn't playing well, and he was right. And he put me on the bench.
Okay.
I'm there, and he called me to go on the field to play, and I was just like, you know how guys get. I didn't like when I hear he's like, if that's how you're gonna be, I didn't play the next game either because of that. And then I realized I'm so competitive. I want to play.
Yeah.
I had to ship up.
Yeah.
That was the last time I ever gave attitude to a coach in my life. And because I wanted to play so bad, and I realized my attitude kept me back.
Yeah.
Right? So for me personally, I became a student in the game. I just kept looking in the game and, okay, I could do this, I could do that. And I became involved. And for me, my personality to deal with disappointment, I was just being lighthearted on the bench and being joyful. That was my turning point
Sure.
to help me until I got back on the field. What is your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm going to just say right there,
Right.
in what you did, right, you had self-awareness. You said, okay, what do I know to be true right here? Attitude isn't going to get me anywhere.
Yeah.
What I know to be true is if I become a student of the game, this is going to help me move forward.
Right.
So that's a huge self-awareness. And I think what happens in athletes is like, they don't recognize, that's a huge win.
Right.
Like they think it's just something, oh yeah, I got over it. That's huge that you had that self-awareness. Like, again, it goes back to that foundation. Once you had that awareness, did you ever have attitude again?
No.
Because,
Imagine that.
yeah, because you understood. So that's where that mental part of the game is really important, right? That's why it's important to, to train the brain, right? And that's key. So it's going, like you said, it's going to be different for everybody, right? It's going to be different for everybody. For me, it was, again, same kind of thing. Like I never really gave attitude, but I'd be like, oh, you tell me I can't do this? Boom. That just triggered, for me, like almost like I'm going to show you, because that can be a good and bad thing sometimes. But it was like, okay, Linda, be quiet. I got this.
Linda.
Right, Linda.
Something
See, I'm
else.
never going to forget
she
Linda.
She got a big hoop earrings.
She does. Oh, I didn't wear my big hoops
Yeah,
today.
right?
Yeah.
She had a little girl, little goatee right there.
Exactly. So self-awareness,
Okay.
I don't know if I answered the question on that, but it's going to be different for every athlete.
Okay.
The only thing that's not going to change for athletes is that foundation of understanding who you are. And that's why I keep going back to that.
Okay.
Because knowing who you are as an athlete and just as an individual is going to help you, right?
Okay. Devil's advocate, right? 5 games in, 6 games, 7 games in. I'm on the bench. I may get 5 minutes, 4 minutes. How long till that self-talk fades away? Or Linda, how do you figure it out? How do you push through? You're 5, 6 games in, and you're still not playing the amount of minutes you want to. What's the next step of trying to, do you just accept, well, I'm just going to be a bench player, or B, how do you figure out to still be positive? You're 2 months in. What's the steps on that?
It's a great question. I'm going to keep going back, and it's going to like, repetitive. It's self-awareness, really knowing who you are as a player. Okay. It's not always going to go how you want. And it's not giving up, and it's not accepting like, okay, this is where I'm at.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that it's not going to be hard. It just means that, and this is how I look at it, and this is me wearing my player shoes, because I went through so much adversity as a player.
Right.
And there's times when I wanted to give up. There were times where I did fall into acceptance, but realized, okay, I know who I am, and I know my worth. And eventually, everybody's path is different.
100%.
And so it's consistency and understanding. What I find with a lot of athletes is that the tools that I give them, or whoever, if they might be working with another mental performance coach, or when it comes to training the game, they don't see those instant results 5, 6 games into it.
Right.
And they're like, oh yeah, this isn't working.
Correct.
And I'm like,
instant
no.
gratification people want.
And again, that's a whole other episode about, all of that. But it's just like anything. A lot of times when I'm working with a player and they say, Coach, it's been 6 games. I'm doing what you're asking me to do. I'm positive. I'm doing this tool. I'm doing that tool. And I'll ask them, how long have you been talking negative to yourself?
Ooh.
And they'll say, well, like 10 years. And I go, I'm not saying it's going to take you 10 years to like rebuild. I said, but you built up this 10 years of negativity.
Yes. How do you chip away?
That's exactly, you chip and chip and chip and chip and chip.
Did not think of that. The
know
prior
what I mean?
versus the now.
The brain is an amazing.
Yeah.
It can take 10 years of that negativity, and then you just keep doing that consistency, and you're going to rewire that brain, and that's really what it's about, is rewiring the brain and how you talk to yourself, building, and literally when you do that, you are literally building new synapses in your brains.
Correct.
New highways that are like really, but it takes time.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, look at in California. How long does it take us to do our freeways around here? It's like, forever. So, So it's that.
Okay, last question I'm going to ask you on failure. So now I have players, well, I know, right? Is there last? I have several players right now that they are playing. They're playing a ton. And they now are suffering with, holy crap, I got committed. I got committed to this big time university, this amazing university, this D1, whatever, top D2 school. Now they have a different type of pressure, and now they have players that are jealous of them. They have players that are talking behind their back. Oh, I can't believe she plays to that school, plays to this school. How? And now they're hearing that, and now they have expectations from mom and dad, and maybe of themselves, and they make a mistake, and whatever. What is your advice for that player is dealing with that now? Now that you're committed and you're starting and you're playing all the time, how do you deal with that? And when you do make mistakes and you do fail?
Yeah, it's a great question. They truly have to understand why they're playing and what their purpose is in playing. I know it sounds really like cliche, and it sounds really like okay, yeah, I play because I want to play. When I'm working with an athlete that's at that level and they've made that, one of the first things, and I'm glad you asked this, one of the first things that I go back to them is, okay, you've met that goal, but why are you playing? Like, what are you, like, let's remember why you're playing. And then I even go further with them, like, why are you playing? Okay, why, like, for example, I'm playing because I know I can play. Okay, well, why do you play? Because I love the game. Why do you love the game? I love the game because I really love the physicality and I love the competitiveness. Why do you love the competitiveness? Because it feeds my soul. Why does it feed your soul? Because it makes me feel confident. So we get down to like the nitty gritty. So they really need to understand what truly, not surface level of why they're playing, but like really like deep, why are they playing? And that really helps a player, and I'll ask players too, like when those expectations are coming or they're feeling nervous, it's like, so remember why you're playing. I have them write it down everywhere so they see it. Because they have to be remembered again, and we go back to that, train your brain. Your brain needs to see it every day. Like, why are you playing? Even if it's like, and they should be having fun.
Right.
Like at the end of the day, we're forgetting that this should all be fun.
Dude,
This should all be
real.
fun,
And
right?
I fell into that trap at one point of being, I have to win at all costs. And when it is, I slow down and then eventually stop that, because at the end of the day, it's just youth soccer, guys. We're going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's a sport. The game kind of came to me, and coaching became easier because I realized, oh, it's all right, we get them next time. Versus the pressure, because even I, as a coach, has a lot of pressure of trying to win because of the landscape we live in.
Yeah.
If we don't get results, then we're failures.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, well, this is the players I have. I'm trying to teach them this. It takes a while, blah, 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 blah. So even I, as a coach, had to deal with failure. But for me, I turn it into action. And if I have to,
so important.
If I think about, let me go back to high school. We did very well every year, but I just didn't win the big one. And I was just tired of feeling. I brought in Coach Dean, I brought in extra help, and built a team and a culture. And after that, I started to look at film. Film became my best friend, and I became obsessed almost. That I was watching film literally every day for almost a month. Yeah, it got nuts.
Yeah.
I had notes and notes and notes. 4-3-3, how to high press, how to counter this. And then eventually, because that's how I dealt with failure for me, by action. That's just who I am, a do-up. And I started forming relationships with the players a little bit better in terms of how to execute, how to deal with them mentally.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't really talk to her like that because
So key.
I'm like, oh, she's ultra sensitive. Did not know that.
Yeah.
But then, but I have Kayla. Kayla come talk to me, Coach. I need you to be on me. Tell me what to go. I need to hear it. And I'm like, you sure?
Yeah.
All right, let's go, Kayla.
Yeah.
And she adapted to that and started to win.
Self-awareness. She knows herself as an athlete.
Big time.
She knows herself as an
I
athlete.
had a lot of respect for her. One of the best captains I ever had. And but with that being said, I think for me, the dealing with failure, well, not, I mean, even though I was good, I wasn't winning the big one, was action.
Yeah.
What can I do?
Yeah.
It took a while, and then eventually we won the big one.
Yeah.
And hallelujah, right? But, well, cool. Now, next segue. How parents can support their kids through their support, and knowing when to nudge versus riding their kid. And you know, as a parent, how can you help them find their passion? So I know it's kind of a three-part question right there.
This
but
can also be like many episodes, but
we would love to have you back.
yeah.
So,
So I'm going to come at this from a couple of different angles.
Okay.
Obviously, I mentioned I'm a parent of former athletes. So I've been in those really gnarly situations, especially with my daughter, who was when she was going through the college process and just trying to decide if she wanted to play, and having two parents who played at the college level, my husband who's played rugby at the national level,
Right.
and so. So she comes from that environment, and then from a coaching perspective, what I've seen and observed, and then as a player who had parents that were extremely hands off, never came to my practices. I come from a different generation.
Big time.
We got kicked out of the car,
See
basically
you
on the
whenever
way.
I see
Yeah,
you.
my parents never talked to the coaches.
Yep.
They're like, "Oh, you're going to play soccer in college?" It was like, "Oh, okay."
That was my mom. She's like, all right, there's food. See you later.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that there's a difference between helping our players as parents find their passion versus determining the passion for them.
See it all the
Right?
time.
And what I mean by that is there are conversations and ways that you can go about it as a parent that makes you feel like you don't have to. I guess the nagging, right? There's that nagging of like, I have parents that come to me all the time. I'm working with several athletes now. It's like, this is the type of player she is. She really should be playing in college.
Yeah.
Okay, but what does the player want? Like, what does the player want, right? So I have a lot of parents that ask me, well, how much is too much? Right? How much?
Yeah.
How do I know when when I'm going over the boundaries of like from like every once in a while nudging, like, hey, did you contact that coach? Or hey, like, what do you want? Like versus every day, it's like.
Well, remember some people. What's that movie with Will Smith and the tennis
which one?
the tennis players?
Got you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Serena, the Williams sisters. Yeah.
Maybe they watched that movie and they realized, well, I need to ride this kid so my kid could be excellent. Or what's the other movie with Tiger Woods or whatever?
Yeah.
His dad are riding him to be excellent. Or even Michael Jackson's story, if I'm going to go really extreme.
Yeah.
They see these movies and they're like, oh, I need to be that so
Yeah.
my kid to be excellent. Or is that not for everyone? Or is that just a movie?
I think a really good question to ask your parents and or not your parents, but as a parent to ask your player is, what does success look like to you? It's a really, really great question. I mean, even on a daily base, like before games, even like that can change the car ride home. Like, what does success look like to you? Because as a parent, like I remember watching my kids play, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, and then they'd come in and be like, oh, that was a great game, and I'd be like, are you kidding me? Because you sucked. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
so I think getting on the same page, and that's a great scripted question that you can ask.
Yep.
It's like, what does success look like to you, right? And if you're having to, my thoughts are, if you're having to nag your player every single day about things, maybe you're not in the right spot. That's a really tough conversation, and that's a really tough spot.
Well, that's parenting, right? Yeah.
That's parenting. So I think that's something, and also remembering like our perspective is important as a parent. But there's different perspectives going on here, and I'm working with a couple players right now, and I call these players in the gray area, meaning, and the gray area is a really hard spot for the player to be, and it's a really hard spot for the parent to be. And that gray area is, they've been playing, they're a good player. They could play at any level, D1, D2, D3, NAIA, all of that stuff.
Right.
And then the parent is really pushing, but the player is really not sure what they want to do.
Yeah.
And it's like that gray area, and it sucks to be that gray area because the parents are like, wait, you're not motivated. It's not that they're not motivated, they're stuck. They really don't know what they want. And so really understanding, like, that's a great question again. Well, what does success look like to you? And if they're like, success to me is like making my high school team and having fun,
Right.
or it's making the top team at my club, or at least playing through club. As a parent, you have to think, okay, this is where they're at right now.
Right.
This is where they're at right now, and being okay with where they're at right now.
I love that you said that, because if I have to reflect on my father, because I was playing and I was doing really well in high school, and the U20 national team called me up, all that good stuff, and I realized, I wasn't sure. He's like, hey, you want to go play in the U.S. or stay home and try to go pro or whatever it is, and I was honestly not sure. But I would give him amazing credit. He nudged just enough.
Yeah.
He got me a private trainer to kind of help out, work out the kinks, and me to find that passion. And he made a tape, a VCR.
Oh my God, a VCR.
Yeah, a big bad
I know
boy
what
like
those
that,
are.
And it's fun. And then funny, it just evolved right into the CD player, the disc,
Yeah.
like shortly after, and helped me. He actually helped me write my first email. So
That's awesome.
He helped me write my first email to the college, and after that, it became easier for me to do. And then he sent the VCR out in the mail, and it took however long, and I started getting responses. And then, but I needed this to get off
Correct.
the ground.
Correct.
And after that, I flowed, and I was doing well, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this. I'm so glad he did.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I did really well in college. So.
And that's again goes back to that original, like your dad helped you find,
Right.
not determine it.
Big time.
And I think that
Yeah.
that's where that balance comes in, that balance. And I think nowadays I find a lot of parents are trying to determine the pathway for their players versus allowing them to find it. And again, this is all another episode, is like, it goes back to that self-awareness. If the player knows who they are, and we're enabling them and we're giving them ownership of who they are as an individual and as a player, those decisions are going to come a little bit easier, and they're going to know their path, right? They're going to and again, it goes back to, I needed nudges. Even, I joked about my parents not knowing that I was going to play in college, but they definitely, hey, did you get the application in? Great, it's in. Like, did you invite the coach? Back in my day, you invited the coaches to come to high school. Did you invite? Yes.
Right.
So it's those are the nudges versus again, if you're
if you're a parent and you keep nudging your child and it's not happening, but you know their potential is real, or do you just leave them alone and they just live in your basement? When do you stop and say, you know what, it's okay that, it seems to me that you don't want to go here, let's look at something else? Is that what the parents should do when they've nudged 10, 20 times? Even though the kid's like, yeah, I want to play in college, I want to do this, but you're not quite doing what you need to do. Should the parents just play another game and say, you know what, I'm just going to leave you alone, or what?
So funny that you say that.
Yeah.
So I played that game as a parent.
You played that game, right?
I played that game. And so my daughter was sophomore, junior year, and my husband and I are like, we were moving from the nudging stage to the nagging stage. And it got to the point, my daughter at one point even said, is all that you want to talk to me about is soccer?
Oh.
And that was a huge and I'm a coach and I've done this, so, and that was a huge eye-opener for me, and I was like, oh, okay.
Just switcheroo on you.
So, she reverse psychologied me. And,
that's your
and
daughter.
So, and yes. And so at that point, I actually knew, just because I'd played in college, my husband and I both played in college, my husband and I both looked at each other and said, we really don't think she knows she was that gray area. Oh. And we need to have her make the decision. And so I literally stepped back and did not talk to her about soccer for almost 8 months.
Oh, wow.
No conversation, just great game, loved watching you play. Didn't say anything if she didn't have a good, I just enjoyed who she was. And she continued to go to college ID camps and college ID camps, even though I knew, both my husband and I knew, she doesn't want to play in college. And we kept going and just let her work it out for herself.
Right, she processed it out. Okay.
She processed it herself, and we were. It was right before her senior year, and she'd come back. We were coming back from a college ID camp, and we were driving, and she said, "You know what? I've decided I don't want to play in college. And I said, okay, I love you. I will honor your decision. I had already prepared myself because what happened in that case, as she was processing, I was processing. I quieted my own mind and realized, oh, I've been pushing this. And so that worked for me.
So you facilitated by obviously helping her, driving her to games, driving her to the ID camps, paying for the ID camps.
I helped her find it. I did
Right.
not determine it for her.
Love that.
She determined it for herself. So that's the difference.
Wow.
I'm not
Huge.
saying that works for everybody. Every parent has to find their own balance, and they know ultimately their child the best.
Okay, love that.
Yeah.
Well, that completes our episode for today. We could talk. We have to have you back. Maybe
Okay.
you could become a regular here because the mind is everything.
Yeah.
So wonderful. Want to know where can we find you? Tell us all the information,
Oh
or
my
your
gosh.
Instagram, your website, your
Okay.
phone number, your address, your social security number, whatever it is.
Oh my gosh.
Because
Okay.
I've sent players to you,
You
and they've
have, and
all of them have
appreciate you.
enjoyed you and become better people after speaking with you. So
thank you.
please let us know where we can find you and how to get in touch with you.
Thank you very much. Of
course.
And I appreciate everybody that you send to me. My Instagram is Corrie _speaks.
Okay.
And I'm in the process of rebuilding my website, but I'm at Corrie's Mental Sports Consulting.
Love it.
And I can be reached at Corrie Speaks. Just DM me.
Okay.
Daniel knows my number.
100%.
So my email is it's so long. You can put it on your.
We put it on the screen. We put it below
It's
here.
so long, but again, I enjoy working. It's my passion.
Last thing, do you do where you actually see parents as well? Mm-hmm. Very good, because some parents. I myself went to see Coach, and she helped me massively with my career. I would say it was 6-7 years ago. So thank you for that. I'm probably going to see you again pretty soon. But definitely, I love that you see parents as well, because they need a little bit of, a
They need
mindset
support.
reminder.
They need support too, and they
Yeah.
need that perspective on it. It's a family affair when it comes to an athlete's journey. Everybody's
Big
a part
time.
of it. So
I appreciate you, and we'll have you
appreciate
back
you.
soon.
awesome.
Thank you. Take care, guys. Vibes.